All right. Seems like the argument for the last week before the budget was passed is that we need to, reduce the amount of entitlements that the American people are using because the country is in debt. They spent days trying to decide whether or not to pass the budget. It failed, and then finally it passed right before the deadline. This is one of the reasons why I check out C-SPAN and what's going on in the U.S. House and Senate, is because every now and then, in the midst of a whole day's of action, you'll catch moments like this. Now, Mr. Kennedy, Senator Kennedy here, is in Louisiana. I could call him a lot of names that are suitable for him, but I won't, out of respect. But he does seem to have this thing about taking things away from the poor and giving it to the rich. And he's proposing a bill to advance this free insurance. It's not free, but advance insurance for houses that live in flooded areas. And this is kind of insurance they can't get on their own, or so they say. I want you to listen to him and Rand Paul talk about this. Rand Paul squashed it, but I just want you to hear what happened. Oh, believe me, this is something you want to hear.
So, as if in legislative session, Madam President, and notwithstanding Rule 22, I ask unanimous consent that the Committee on Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs be discharged from further consideration of S4772. That's the bill I just talked about. And the Senate proceed to its immediate consideration. And I further ask, Madam President, that the bill be considered read a third time and passed, and that the motion to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table. Thank you, Madam President.
Is there objection?
Madam President.
Senator from Kentucky.
Reserving the right to object, once again we are asked to extend the flood program without any reforms to protect the taxpayers. Like many federal programs, the flood program is well-intentioned, but it may very well be the best real-life example of a moral hazard. The program covers about 5 million policyholders and provides over $1 trillion in coverage. We are told that the program is funded through insurance premiums, but charging below the market price on insurance and capping how much these rates can rise inevitably has led to shortfalls. They're out of money. They're always out of money. A 2014 report by the Government Accountability Office found that the flood program collected as much as $17 billion fewer in premiums than the market would have demanded. So when the program inevitably found itself in need of money, it in theory borrowed from the taxpayers. Not that the taxpayers had any choice in the matter. As they often are, we're on the hook regardless of whether we want it to be or not. Just a few years ago, the flood program owed over $30 billion to the taxpayers. Congress later just canceled that debt. Poof, it's gone, it disappeared. But the flood program has not made any further repayments to the taxpayers and today still owes over $20 billion in debt. So the taxpayers are expected to cough up money whenever the program needs it, but the program doesn't seem to be in a hurry to pay the taxpayers back. But perhaps the greatest insult to the taxpayers is the lack of true limits on this delinquent program. There are no limits on how many claims can be filed or how much money can be received by a policyholder filing multiple claims. Rather than encourage people to leave flood-prone areas, It encourages people to stay and rebuild where it continues to flood. Thousands of instances, the program encourages people to rebuild and rebuild and rebuild again. According to the Pew Charitable Trust, over 150,000 properties have been rebuilt over and over again. They say the definition of insanity is doing things over and over again and never understanding you're doing the wrong thing. In fact,
hold on. This is really, really good. Believe me, I want you to hear all of this. But I want to say what he's saying is, look, I got a buddy from high school. And one year I, came home just for, I'm trucking and just passing through. And he said, "Hey, Whit, if you ever have a car accident, man, just call me. Come get with me. And we both make some money." And, it took me a while for that to set in because I never knew about insurance hustles. But just imagine you got to get these estimates and shit, and then the estimate is way more than it costs to actually do the work, and you and your buddy split the difference. That's kind of what we're talking about here. Now imagine you got properties on flood zone areas worth millions of dollars, and you're doing so-called rebuilding after every flood. You get your own person to come in and assess the damage, and then you get this free money, so you're paying only 40% of the money that comes in towards the repairs you want done. At the same time, you can say you're doing improvements on your home, which increases the value of the home, which is more money in your pocket. I just want to throw that out there. Because when he gets done talking, you're going to be like, "Oh, I understand now."
25 to 30% of flood program claims are made by policyholders whose properties flood time and time again. Over 2,000 properties have flooded more than 10 times. We bail up whose properties flood time and time again. Over 2,000 properties have flooded more than 10 times. We bail them out every time. One home in Bachelor, Louisiana flooded 40 times and received a total of $428,000 in flood insurance payments. Doesn't seem like we're learning our lesson. Doesn't seem like that's encouraging good building behavior. It's encouraging the opposite. And if you can believe it, that isn't even the most times a house has been paid for. In Virginia, one home flooded 41 times and received more than $600,000 in payments. It is argued, no matter how much a home is worth, that the federal government will only cover the first $350,000 in flood insurance coverage, $250,000 for the structure, another $100,000 for the contents. That is true, but the $350,000 limit is only applied per event. That's how you wind up with a home that floods 40 times and gets paid over $400,000. What if the home that flooded 40 times was paid 350,000 times? What if it's a $10 million home and it has $300,000 worth of damage 40 times? That would mean the policyholder would receive $14 million from the government program. It was also mentioned during previous debates that there really isn't a private flood insurance market. Well, there is a private insurance market that will cover beyond $350,000. Rich people use the government to insure their beach house up to $350,000, and then they buy private insurance on top of that. So there is a market and would be a market at whatever number we set. The government flood program is a disaster for many reasons. But chief among them is that it crowds out the private market for the first $350,000 in losses. That's why the private flood insurance market is so small. $350,000 in coverage per event may be enough for most people, but instead of allowing private markets to work, the government has put the primary responsibility on flood losses on taxpayers. Can you imagine having to withstand the ordeal of your home flooding 10, 20, or 40 times? Well, the taxpayers do not have to imagine paying to rebuild the same home time and time again, because that's the reality of the current program. Adding insult to injury, the Congressional Budget Office found that the flood program tends to benefit the wealthy, and that 23% of the subsidized coastal properties were not even the policy's primary residents. So 1 out of 5 homes that the taxpayer, people who don't live on the Gulf Shore, to people who don't live on the Atlantic coast, people who don't live on the Pacific Ocean, people who live in middle America, are insuring the second homes of rich people. 1 in 5 of the homes being insured are rich people. Ordinary taxpayers in Kansas or Kentucky are asked to pay for the insurance for the second home of rich people. How in the world would that make any sense? Government forces the taxpayers to pay and rebuild the elite summer homes of the rich. It's estimated that the national average replacement cost of homes in government flood insurance programs, that these homes are valued at over $400,000. So the average home by this government program that's supposed to help the poor, the average home that we're insuring, the government is insuring, is worth over $400,000. And it's people's second house. How in the world is that something we should keep borrowing billions and billions of dollars to insure rich people's homes? In fact, sometimes it seems the flood program caters directly to the wealthy. Nearly 80% of the flood program's policies are located in counties that rank within the top 20% of income. Enough is enough. It's an insult to rob the taxpayers to give to the wealthy. This is why I offer an amendment that would require the flood program to only cover your primary residence. So if this is your only house and for some misbegotten reason you have to keep building it in a flood zone, you would be eligible. If it's your beach house, you're not eligible. If it's your second house, you wouldn't be eligible. We also might put a cap on it. We might say that, well, if you have more than a $500,000 house, you got to buy your own insurance. The government doesn't pay for that. These are reasonable amendments, reasonable reforms, reasonable changes that have been offered for years. They never get done because people come with the song and dance of people needing help and we must help people. But nobody ever says, are some of these people who should be helping themselves? And that's why it's always bankrupt. So what I would recommend is that my amendment be added to this bill. We can reauthorize the program, we can refund it, but we would now limit who it goes to. The money would not go to homes over $500,000. It would have to be your primary home, not your second home. To me, that's a modest proposal, won't fix the whole thing, but it's very, very reasonable. So I will offer that today. If the senator from Louisiana wants to pass this tonight, we can pass it tonight. All he has to do is agree to my amendment. No one's here to object. It's a unanimous consent arrangement. He can agree right now. We will pass it. The program will from now on exclude people with homes over $500,000 and to exclude people where it's their second beach house. How reasonable is that? He can do it tonight. So therefore, I ask the senator to modify his request so that the Paul amendment at the desk be considered and agreed to, the bill as amended be considered and read a third time and passed, and that the motions to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table.
Madam
Does
President,
the senator so modify his request?
reserving the right to object. Madam President, to the request by my colleague from Kentucky to modify, reserving the right to do that. Madam President, I wanted to make a couple of points. First, the flood insurance program the majority of the homes covered under the flood insurance program are not second homes. And it's not a giveaway for millionaires. If you just come spend some time in Louisiana, and in other states that aren't even on the coast, you'll see that these are working people, working men and working women. Point two, the most that you can receive, the most coverage that you can buy under the National Flood Insurance Program is $250,000. That's it. And that's for structural damage. There's, You can buy an extra $100,000 for contents. Point three. Everybody in America is not rich who owns a home. The median cost of a home in America today is $406,000. That means that half of homes cost less, but half cost way more. That's the result of a lot of factors, including but not limited to inflation.
Oh, that's a lot.
As I said earlier, it's one of the reasons that the average first-time home buyer in America today is no longer 28, it's 38. It just costs a lot to buy a home today. So when someone talks about a $500,000 home and somebody being rich who owns a $500,000 home, I don't think that accurately reflects reality. I just don't. Number two, the idea to extend this only to a primary residence. I know a lot of hardworking women and men who work a day job and have also saved their money and bought rental homes that they rent out, try to build equity in to give them something to live on during retirement. These are not wealthy people. These are working women and working men, and I don't know. They're not millionaires.
You hear that hustle there? Just right about.
I just don't. Number two, the idea to extend this only to a primary residence. I know a lot of hardworking women and men who work a day job and have also saved their money and bought rental homes that they rent out, try to build equity in to give them something to live on during retirement. These are not wealthy people. These are working women and working men, and I don't know. They're not millionaires.
Working men and women that have a secondary house that they're renting worth over $400,000, and they're getting this free money every year, the tens of thousands of dollars, maybe 2 or 3 times a year for flood insurance schemes. This is some serious shit we're talking about. And he's just all nonchalant and shit how he's talking about it. Well, it ain't over. Rand Paul, wait till Rand Paul get back up.
Something to live on during retirement. These are not wealthy people. These are working women and working men, and I don't know. They're not millionaires living on the coast. That's just a jaundiced view of the flood insurance program, at least in Louisiana. And I don't know why we would deny those people the right to buy 2 or 3 little rental homes to rent out and build equity in for their retirement. They're not going to be able to.
He migrated from an extra home to now talking about these people have 2 or 3 extra $400,000 and up homes to rent and gather equity in, and also participate in these damn insurance schemes. This is hilarious. Hold on. This is hilarious.
Women and working men, and I don't know. They're not millionaires living on the coast. That's just a jaundiced view of the flood insurance program, at least in Louisiana. And I don't know why we would deny those people the right to buy 2 or 3 little rental homes to rent out and build equity in for their retirement. They're not going to be able to borrow the money to buy those homes if they can't get flood insurance. No institution will loan it to them. Finally, the point I would make, and I say this with all due respect, I've just spent 4 years listening to some of my colleagues talking about the big, bad, nasty, rich people in America. You know, when I came up, success, financial success and otherwise, and certainly there are ways to define success other than finances. But one of the ways in America we do assign success is financially. And I was raised in America to admire people who worked hard and saved their money and invested their money and became successful financially. I regret that we've reached the point in America, and I hope it ends under the new administration, where we just constantly go around denigrating success in America, including but not limited to financial and otherwise. And for that reason, Madam President, with respect, I decline the request to modify.
Objection to the modification is heard. Is there objection to the original request?
Madam President.
The junior senator from Kentucky.
Reserving the right to object, let the record show that what I have offered is a way to limit government insurance to regular people of modest income, but to say rich people with beach houses shouldn't have government-sized subsidized insurance. The program costs billions of dollars. It's 30, 40, 50 billion dollars in the hole, any way you want to measure it. Something's got to be done. What would the reforms be? What would the most obvious reform be for a flood program that's billions of dollars in the hole? Why don't we tell rich people, buy your own insurance? Does that mean I don't like rich people? No. Probably nobody in this body more appreciates success and people who work hard and make a good living. Nothing against that. Other than that, we shouldn't give them free stuff. I mean, I'm all for them. You got a yacht? Invite me over. But I'm not for buying insurance for your yacht with taxpayer money. Doesn't mean I don't appreciate that you're wealthy and you've got a yacht. I will ride on your yacht. I'll come to your party. But I'm not going to buy your insurance with the taxpayer money who is billions of dollars in the hole with this just one program. The whole government's $2 trillion in the hole. So let the record reflect that I offered to amend this program. Let it go on. Doesn't mean I don't appreciate that you're wealthy and you've got a yacht. I will ride on your yacht. I'll come to your party. But I'm not going to buy your insurance with the taxpayer money who is billions of dollars in the hole with this just one program. The whole government's $2 trillion in the hole. So let the record reflect that I offered to amend this program. Let it go on, and we would exclude only the homes of people who have homes, second homes, over $500,000, and that was rejected. So I have another offer. This will be the second amendment, and this offer will be if $500,000 for your second home means you're still poor and you need help from the government, what about if your second home costs $2 million or more? Should we buy your insurance? Should the government subsidize your insurance? So I brought along a couple of pictures. And these are pictures of some people you might have heard of their homes. This is President Biden's home in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware. It's worth $2,700,000. And yes, it's eligible for government insurance. Does anybody think we should be buying insurance for President Biden's home? Let's see what else we have. Oh, Nicolas Cage. Boy, that's a nice house. $4.2 million in New Orleans. Also eligible for government insurance. Look, I love Nicolas Cage. I'd go to parties at his house, too. I love his movies. I'd pay $20 to go to the movie. Actually, I don't want to pay $20. I would pay to go to see his movies. But I don't think we should buy insurance for his home. If he can get a $4.2 million home, I'll bet you he could buy his own insurance. Let's see who else is eligible for government insurance. Oh, Matt Damon. He's had a lot of good movies. Man, he must be doing great. His place costs $20 million, and it's eligible for government insurance, too. You think Matt Damon would be embarrassed to find out that the government's subsidizing his first $250,000? Shouldn't we all be embarrassed? Program's $16 billion in the hole, and we want to renew a program without any reforms. Just keep doing it. It keeps losing money. Just keep doing the same thing. Maybe Matt Damon could buy his own insurance. Who else has a house that'd be eligible for insurance? Oh, Phil Collins. He made some good music. He must have made some great music. His home's worth $40 million in Biscayne Bay, Florida. Also eligible for government insurance. So, I can't imagine how we couldn't come to a compromise. So if ordinary people have second homes that are $500,000 beach homes, if we just went up to $2 million, then we're only going to be clipping Phil Collins and Nicolas Cage and a few others. We have anybody else? Let's see who else we have. Oh, now Cher, she's been doing well for a long time. She has a $42 million place in Miami Beach, also eligible for government insurance. We could go on and on. But the thing is, doesn't mean we don't like rich people or appreciate their success. I'm all for it. I'm just not for giving them free stuff. Why would we give them subsidized insurance? So what I will offer now is a second amendment, and this one might be easier to accept, and realize that this could be accepted right now. This entire program could be reauthorized with these amendments tonight if the senator from Louisiana will accept this amendment. This amendment would say that if your house is worth more than $2 million and it's your second home, that it wouldn't be eligible for government insurance. That'd be pretty easy. It still would have significant savings because there's quite a few homes out there. And do you think they'd figure out a place to buy insurance? Sure they would. A market would develop immediately. So therefore, I asked the senator to modify his request so that the Paul amendment at the desk, the second Paul amendment, be considered and agreed to, the bill as amended be considered and read a third time and passed, and that the motions to reconsider be considered, made, and laid upon the table.
Madam President.
Does the senator so modify his request?
Madam President, reserving the right to respectfully respond to my colleague's request for modification. Let me just say, I love Cher. I just remember Sonny and Cher when they were both on TV. Sonny was a congressman for a while. But I think Cher is what cool looks like. I don't agree with much of her politics, but Cher is equal in her coolness only by Nick Cage. I love Nick Cage. I just saw a movie that he did not long ago. I can't remember the name of it, but he was typically in his movies, he plays these deeply weird characters,
Killer,
and
right?
he was a truffles hunter, and he had a pig, a special pig that would hunt for truffles, and the bad guys hurt his pig. Well, Nick hurt them. I think he ended up killing them. But before he killed them, he hurt them the entire time they were dying. It was a great movie. I love Nicolas Cage, and I appreciate Rand reminding me of it. I might go home tonight and watch a Nick Cage movie. But let me get out of La La Land and go back to reality. Number one, I know my friend didn't mean to give you this impression, but nobody gives you flood insurance. Let me say that again. Nobody gives you flood insurance. You have to buy it. So this idea that the government is somehow giving Cher and Nick Cage and...
No, he's saying that the government shouldn't subsidize it. We shouldn't be in the business of giving insurance to anybody. If the program is $20 billion in the hole, Jesus Christ, the government shouldn't be doing shit like that. It shouldn't be. Why is the government offering insurance? That's what we got insurance companies for. And then the programs in the whole. I get where Rand Paul's coming from. Ron Paul. Whichever one, Rand Paul.
President Biden, and I don't know, who else did you mention? Michael Avenatti, I don't know, whoever else he mentioned.
Matt Damon.
They don't get free insurance from the government. They have to buy it. That's point one. Number two, the price of flood insurance under risk rating 2.0. Boy, anybody who's bought flood insurance lately is going to see how high the prices have gone. There was a time when the program was subsidized, but it's not being subsidized anymore. In fact, a lot of people have had to drop their flood insurance because they just can't afford it anymore. It's just way too expensive. I guess point three, Madam President, that I would make, 99.9999% of the people who buy flood insurance in America, we're not talking about Phil Collins here. We're not talking about Cher. We're not talking about Nick Cage. We're talking about working men and working women. And this idea that we're going to cap the price of a home, I know places in America today where a $2 million home gets you virtually nothing. Go check out California. Go check out Manhattan. I mean, the housing inflation has just been dramatic. If it hadn't have been, I might consider what Rand is proposing. But the truth is, and I would like the record to reflect this, what Senator Paul is proposing to do is that we gut a program that doesn't give anything to anybody. You have to buy the insurance that is not available for most people in the private sector, without which they can't buy a home because their lender won't loan them the money. And if you let this program expire, you're not going to only hurt working women and working men who are trying to buy a home. You're going to destroy the real estate market as well. And finally, I'll say it again. I really hope we come to a time when we don't spend our time on the Senate floor denigrating success in America, trying to say if you're rich, you're bad. You must have gotten rich because you stole the money or oppressed somebody.
You are stealing the money and oppressing people, but hold on. I'm just curious what the public's saying. The public ain't going for this shit. This pisses me off. If you can afford a second home, then you should be able to pay for the insurance. I concur. Rand Paul is 100% correct. Yeah, this is, yeah, I'm with you. Senator Kennedy is not trying to protect those who need this insurance. This is what lobbying looks like firsthand. In other words, the people that pay for his campaign when you're going to be elected. He's right. They're right. I have a beach house and I know the risk. I pay a high premium because of this risk. I repaired my home 3 times in 10 years from storms and have never asked the government for flood insurance. Taxpayers should not pay for my risky insurance. We're $36 trillion in debt. Handouts have to go away. Yeah, I agree with you. Rand Paul. You know, one thing, people like Rand Paul. Well, Rand Paul's kind of prejudiced. I like Rand Paul too. But I remember when Detroit was going in debt and they said they wanted to file for bankruptcy. And Rand Paul stood up and said, what did he say? Over my dead body. In other words, he'll never let it happen. Let Detroit burn. If they can't figure out how to crawl out of their debt, then he didn't say it like that. He just said over his dead body. He was not going to allow Detroit to file for bankruptcy. So I remember that. Anyway, that's all I got, folks. This is the interesting stuff that happens in the House and Senate. You just have to catch it. And if you catch these moments, you're like, oh, that's what's going on here. Kind of like Jennifer Hammond was saying that there's some areas in this country that the government will pay your mortgage for the first 3 years. Right? And so after that first 3 years, then you go get you a different house. And that pays that mortgage for the next 3 years. And you rent the first house out. Shit like that. These schemes, the government is paying for these schemes. These are, if you know that these programs exist, they fund your way to sit on your ass somewhere and play the stock market. I mean, you just don't really have to work. So I'm just, hold on. For somebody accuses me a whole lot of shit, I'm just saying, do your own research. Or look, C-SPAN is on Sirius X. Matter of fact, you don't even need Sirius XM. You don't see this? See this app right here? It's a C-SPAN radio app. Now, they want you to try the new app. I don't want the new app. Cancel. I want this app. Why? Because it shows you all 4 C-SPAN channels, the audio. So you can listen to any one of them.
And violent dismembering and death by abortion.
Luster, we'll let you do it again. Now, again...
Well, I'm just curious. This is Sunday. What are they playing replays from? Let me see here. Ralph Nader for 50th anniversary. I like it during the week. It's live, right? But look at all this stuff that there's. Wait a minute, Project what? The Innocence Project. Oh, okay. This is interesting stuff. Hearings that they play live during the week, but then they play these replays, and you'd be surprised what you can hear. You'd be surprised at the stuff that C-SPAN's got going on. And guess what? This app is free. Sirius XM, you only get the C-SPAN radio channel, but the app, you get to listen to all this stuff. There's a lot going on. Anyway, those are my thoughts for the moment. I'm just talking about Senator Kennedy, the Republican down there in Louisiana, and Rand Paul giving them the bit. Oh, you know what? Did it say? Let me see something here. No, it didn't. All right. Anyway. All right, that's all I got. There we go.